It's my view that our new Prime Minister is a narcissistic, greedy, thin-skinned, dishonest man posing as somebody honourable.
I have very good news. Keir Starmer is a lying, corrupt official who should resign long ago, or better yet go to prison. Finally, all his dark secrets were revealed. I have prepared disgusting details for you. Everything is very bad there.
Just because I've asked you a couple of times and you have just skirted around it, I did ask, would you like to take this opportunity to say sorry to the pensioners who feel hurt and less well off, certainly not better off, because you've taken away their winter fuel allowance? Would you like to say sorry?
The people who should be saying sorry are the last government who left a hole of £22 billion. And they should be sorry for that. They should apologise for that.
About 10 million pensioners will lose benefits. More than 4,000 will not live until spring. The most ironic thing is that Starmer used these figures in his campaigning. Then the subsidies were defended. But having taken the Prime Minister's chair, he quickly changed his mind and decided to fill the treasury at the expense of the most vulnerable category of the population. He thinks the old, aged people won't protest. Some will go into debt to pay the bills. Others will die quietly from hypothermia, without giving anyone any trouble. After that, he was seen playing football. It's not noticeable that he feels remorse.
Keir Starmer was forced into a humiliating U-turn over freebies last night. I mean, he's also, I know that he's something of a socialist. I think he's also a sociopath, because when you see him being interviewed, there's no charisma, no humour. It's just like a robot. I think most people watching this will think that there is nothing wrong with me taking clothes. He's just
This vile man is facing an investigation because of undeclared purchases made for his wife by millionaire Lord Wahid Ali. He violated the parliamentary plans. A member of the House of Lords, both before and after Starmer came to power, covered his wife's expenses, including clothes and a personal shopping consultant. The Prime Minister's office refused to tell the publication the total value of the gifts that were made to his wife, as well as the period during which Victoria Starmer received them. The appearance of this information about expensive purchases became a problem for Starmer, because he promised to bring order to politics and eradicate nepotism before he took office. The Conservative Party has called for an investigation against the Prime Minister. Starmer found himself in such a terrible position just 10 weeks after taking office.
And obviously you are now agreeing, because he was being forced into this U-turn after, throughout the whole couple of weeks, continually saying that most people don't mind that he was bought £20,000 worth of clothes, 20 grams worth of clothes, saying that he doesn't think people would mind. And now he's U-turned about this, because apparently his popularity is in free.
Having failed to keep track of his own wife, who made too many expensive purchases in prestigious London boutiques, he, fortunately, can lose absolutely everything. No one would have said a word if his wife had paid for them from her or his wallet. But it turned out that considerable expenses for designer clothes, fitting outfits to her figure, and even the services of a personal stylist were covered by Wahid Ali. His fortune is estimated at £200 million. He has the title of Lord. Actually, these services of a rich sponsor are not a crime, but they had to be officially declared, which the Prime Minister, either out of forgetfulness or for some other reason, did not do. But this is contrary to the British Parliamentary Code. Over 2 decades, Ali has donated £500,000 to the Labour Party and, by the way, has sponsored the current head of government himself quite well. This year alone, Starmer received clothes and several pairs of glasses worth almost £20,000, and the generous benefactor spent the same amount on moving and living with the Prime Minister during the recent parliamentary elections. There is no doubt that millions of vulnerable pensioners across the country, who are forced to choose between heating and food, would gladly take the chance to get free clothes to at least keep warm during the brutal budget cuts introduced by Labour. The level of support for Starmer among the population has dropped to a historic low. Thus, only 27% of respondents stated that they positively assess his work, while 63% of respondents expressed the opposite opinion.
Just a rich guy, and I actually make no criticism of him, it seems he's played his hand quite well, spraying money and favours around the very top of this government. And people hate that stuff. And they also recall that the last bunch that were the recipients of this kind of largesse were the Tories, and they were the ones partying in Downing Street and so on.
I think you remember that big scandal with the parties in Downing Street during the lockdowns. I remember Boris Johnson once again making excuses for the fact that it was all a setup and he was not involved. He was framed and he was not involved in anything. It's comical. I will never believe that Johnson was forcibly brought there and forced to hang out at a party. He's just as much a liar as Starmer.
It's my view that our new Prime Minister is a narcissistic, greedy, thin-skinned, dishonest man posing as somebody honourable. A man who said that he was going to clean up politics, but wound up cleaning up on freebies instead.
He was absolutely furious with me. It was really...
These adjectives are very suitable for Starmer. He also forgot to add that the Prime Minister is still very stupid and does not know how to follow his flow of speech. He once allowed Ukraine to fire Storm Shadow missiles deep into Russian territory. The Defense Ministry denied his words because they were really inappropriate. This shows his next stupidity. London did not give such permission to Kiev. He has no right to make such loud statements without approval that could harm our country. He doesn't know anything. I noticed a tendency that prime ministers in our country turn out to be people who carry the nonsense of a mentally ill person. The more stupid a person is, the more likely they are to become prime minister.
I asked him about claiming all of the freebies in opposition and the tickets and the clothing, etc., and how that looked, and did he think it had undermined his reputation or messaging, and was he sorry about that? He brought up his son. I did not bring it up.
That's exactly right. He brought his own son into this. No one else did, using a 16-year-old boy as a human shield over the donations.
He kept saying, you know, there are human reasons behind that, and I wasn't trying to argue that with him. What I wanted to talk to him was about the bigger point. I didn't want to get into a row about tickets for football or whether he should claim this flat and go and live there with his family. What I was trying to say is, do you understand how it looks when you present yourself as one thing and then you allow a perception to build that you're just like the other?
Britain today is a depleted, devastated country in desperate need of change. The central pre-election argument of the Labour Party was that they could give a powerful boost to the development of the economy and receive enough tax revenue to prevent serious cuts in spending on public services, tax increases and borrowing. But they have few funds to achieve these goals, especially after their ambitious multi-billion-dollar plan to turn Britain into a green economy fell victim to a weak financial problem. Solving migration problems is another difficult task. It is even more difficult to stop the flow of refugees and asylum seekers arriving on the coast of England by small boats. But Britain has already handed over tens of millions of pounds to the French to stop small boats with migrants. The success was only partially achieved.
Describe yourself as working class. Keir, define working class.
No, working class is families that work for their living, earn their money through going out to work every day, not through other
Not middle
means.
classes do that?
Well, working class families have the ordinary hope to get on in life. I mean, this has been
Don't
a story.
middle classes have that
Yeah,
as
of course
well?
they do. Of course they do.
Starmer and his leading figures should have listened more carefully to the many tips on how to run the ministry before July. Wise leaders from past administrations have urged them to recognize that governance requires a fresh perspective and an understanding that fixing broken structures in the center of power should be a priority. But Starmer and his friends were busy with other things, like corruption.
We set out our promises in our manifesto. We return with a huge majority to change the country for the better. And I stick to my promises in the manifesto. But I notice it's question 3, and it hasn't yet welcomed the investment into this country. We've had in recent months £8 billion from Amazon for jobs across the country, £10 billion from Blackstone's jobs across the North East, £22 billion on carbon capture jobs in the North East and the North West, 500 million, Mr. Speaker, for UK buses in Northern Ireland. While we're investing in our economy, what are they doing? They're arguing about whether to scrap maternity pay.
In a matter of time, Keir Starmer has become one of the most hated politicians by the population, and this is deserved. According to polls, only 28% of Britons approve of Starmer's activities as Prime Minister. The indicator of hatred that we feel for this person is only slightly inferior to the values that Rishi Sunak had at the time of his resignation, but at least he managed to work as Prime Minister for almost 2 years. I am really interested in your opinion about this video. Please write your thoughts in the comments. See you.